Hello. I think it's best if you just quickly introduce yourself so everybody knows with who I'm talking.
Yeah, no problem. My name is Jo Quail, and I'm a cellist and a composer, and I'm from London, UK.
So, how did it actually start with you and the cello? I know that it's been during childhood days, but how did it develop up to the point that we're actually sitting here right now?
Well, I mean, it's quite a long story. I have to make it very short, but we were very, very lucky. When I was a kid in primary school, the string playing, cello and violin was offered free to all of the inner London school kids. So it was, I mean, a lot of people. So actually, I said no when they first said, "Do you want to learn cello or violin?" And then the second term of it, there was a gap in the cello class. And so I went along with my friend in order to get out of something or other at school. I was about five then, you know. And then I met my first cello, little quarter-sized cello with ILEA, ILEA, which was the Inner London Education Authority at the time, scratched into the bottom of it. And that was it. That's where the journey started. I mean, it's been no means a smooth journey, and it's been quite interesting. You didn't ask about this, but I'll tell you anyway, because I think from a psychological point of view, I was, because I started late, this is some piece of baggage that I carried around for many, many years. I don't anymore, luckily, but I did quite a lot of thoughts and quite a lot of deep introspection, when about the performance and all sorts of things, and thinking about the impact that had beginning later. So being on the back foot from the start of my journey. Do you know what I mean? It was quite interesting,
Yeah.
actually. I think it's had quite profound impact. Anyway, there you go. So that's how I started.
But did you always stick to playing cello after you started that first course, or how did it go?
Yeah, well, I did. So I never went to any other instruments. I've always played piano as well. I'm not a very good pianist, but good enough to get round. And that is a really helpful thing. I think basic keyboard skills are very useful when it comes to thinking about harmony and any kind of theory, if you like. I'm not heavily into that, and I don't heavily push that with my students, but I do think it's quite useful. But so cello and piano. And I went all the way through to the end of my degree, performance degree, and then I stopped playing for about 7 or 8 years, just because there was no at the time. At the time, this was early 90s. There was no kind of um, well, there was no apocalyptic. Nobody was doing anything like this, and I had always loved um, rock, metal music. That's the very broad terminology for it, but also, of course, classical music. But I didn't want to follow the path that was prescribed as a classical cellist, and I didn't feel really in love anymore with cello and or actually with music either. It's just how it goes. Sometimes you fall out of love, and then I found my way back because I played keyboards for a while in a band, and the person that was running this record label said to me, "Oh, there's a lady called Rose McDowell, who of course was a big 80s pop star. And Rose McDowell needs a cello player for a Whitby Goth Festival. You used to play cello." And I was like, "Oh God, no, I don't play the cello anymore. I couldn't possibly do that." Anyway, luckily, I said yes for some unknown reason, and that then the ball began to roll again. But I mean, that was like 100 years ago, and that was, again, the path was pretty slow, to be honest with you, Karina. So, you know.
But has your family always been into music, or are you one of those that have like no musical background in that family sense?
Yeah, my mum, she's always played piano, so she used to play piano with me when I was very little. And my sister's a violinist. My dad isn't a musician, but thank God he's really supportive. My mum, she began to play the cello after I did. It's quite funny actually because the parents used to bring us up on Saturday mornings. We went to a school in Tower Hamlets to do this music thing with the Centre for Young Musicians, and the parents were all sitting around waiting for 3 hours for us. So they somehow or other got hold of some full-size instruments, and they started up what became known as the East London Late Starters Orchestra. So it's a string orchestra for adult beginners. It's fantastic. And from that then was born Contemporary Music for All, or COMA as it's rather unfortunately known. But this is a very interesting project. So this is a project out of this parents' orchestra. This project was set up. by these parents to, in order to, if you like, further the accessibility, I suppose, of contemporary music. And now one of the is either the Royal Academy or the Royal College of Music. One of them, their performance master students have to write a piece of music for this ensemble, and this ensemble exists now across the world. Where there's several pockets, for example, in the UK. The point is that it's not just string players, the scores must be written open score, so you can, with any number of people, if you have 15 flute players, two double basses and a harpist, you will be able to play these compositions. They can rearrange for the different,
Ah,
or if
okay.
you've got a stand orchestra, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. And it's done a huge amount to demystify contemporary music, if you like, and also make people, these great composers are writing pieces of music for people who are enthusiastic to play them. It's not just people sitting on a chair getting paid for a session. It's people who actually want to play. You know what I mean? So
So your family always has been supporting your path, or have there been sentences like that typical like can't you just like learn a normal job or do a normal job or the 8 to 5
no,
thing?
no, they've always been really supportive. I think. I mean, they really, really, really supportive. I've always had a job that runs alongside music. I know very few people who can do this. Or in fact, I mean, who want to do this full time? I I teach 2 days a week on a master's course, composition, film media composition, and music production and stuff. That is a joy, a great joy, and it means that when I play and when I tour and stuff, I well, first of all, I get to meet my students because they're all over the world, and also uh, that's a very precious time. My family have been very, very supportive of this, and also particularly when my daughter was little. That was where I really needed support. I needed help because my partner works as well. So, if I'm away and stuff. So there's support comes in many levels, and has many faces, and they've always been really up for it. Nobody has ever said, can you get a proper job or anything. Thank God.
So you already mentioned that you're also teaching.
Yeah.
So you're doing it in person and via Zoom or digital means, or how does
Yeah,
it go?
it's all online. So my university is it's attached to the Arts University Bournemouth. It's a place called Think Space Education, and but Think Space specialises in film and media composition basically.
Hmm,
But there's
okay.
also orchestration, and there's a course for sound design, video games, stuff like that. There's one in songwriting and music production, and I work across all of the courses because I do all of those things, and I'm a team leader there as well. So I've got a team of professional media composition students, and we meet twice every other week, and then I do one-to-ones. I work on their marking, but I also do this across all of the other courses as well. I absolutely love it because people come from all walks of life, and so there's some people straight out of their first degree. There's other people, particularly in COVID, we had quite a lot of pilots. So people would come and say, I used to play French horn, I haven't played it for years. Now I have time. And it was great. It was so inspiring, just seeing these people just rediscover their love of music and their abilities as composers, watch them grow as composers, whether they're scoring films or whether they're working on their own projects outside of media, whatever. It's just been fascinating. I love it.
So what's the things that most people struggle with, like your students?
Most Pretty much every single one of them struggles with imposter syndrome, and so they all feel, as do most people, and I myself included, feel at varying stages not good enough or not able enough or doubting abilities or doing the silly comparing yourself to everybody else out
Mm.
there. um, and so a lot of my work is about making people realize that there is enough room for everybody. And the important thing is the individuality of each person, which is an odd thing to say because if you're dealing with media composition, film composition especially, the market is there's quite an accepted way of hearing a soundtrack. And there's obviously these absolute pillars of composing brilliance who are out there doing these things. Things are starting to reshape and change a little bit. but it's making, but people, you know, if they feel that they can't immediately write a soundtrack that sounds like June or Lord of the Rings, then they get a bit, you know, hot under the collar. So we spend a lot, I spend a lot of time saying, well, let's score a duet, you know, or let's work with sound design. Let's take sounds from outside. You know, all these types of things. Just finding ways to so that people can take hold of their own identity as
Mm.
musicians and composers. That's the main thing. I mean, obviously, some people come in and say, oh, I don't know how to use Cubase or something. That's fine. I mean, those are things that we can all deal with. You can learn how to do something. What you can't learn, what cannot be taught, if you like, is the individual creativity. And so that needs to be uncovered. And that is a big, long process, and it's a
Mm.
beautiful one.
So what's the advice to those people? Or also maybe because you said you also struggled with it, what would you tell your yeah, your younger self
God,
what
I
to
was
do
talking.
maybe different or
Yeah,
how
I
to
mean,
feel or
it's funny because all these things are set within the context of the time. So if I was talking to if I was talking to myself as the student who was doing their final performance, I mean, in that final performance, they said to me, the examining people, they said, you're not really a very natural cellist, are you? And I was like, no, I suppose you're right. I'm not actually. So I didn't play and I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, well, it was something I'd liked for a long time. If I was talking to that person now, the me then, I would say, I don't know what I would say because as I'm saying, it's in the context in that framework. So actually, it's not like I could look at all these great people playing cello in metal bands or anything. This just wasn't happening. At best, you'd get a half-baked string quartet playing long notes behind a ballad or something. You know what I mean? There was nothing. And sound design, all the world of sound design, I had nothing. I had no knowledge about any of this. I think I would say to myself that I do say this to my students actually, ask questions, be curious, admit, it doesn't matter if you don't know it. You ask the question to someone, they ask me questions. I'm like, I've no idea, but let's find out together. You know, that's the point. But rather than accepting what somebody who has absolutely no authority to tell you, it's a bit like with babies, it's a little bit like babies. So when you've got your baby, I know this from experience, you are the expert, not the midwife or the woman in the supermarket or anybody else. You are the expert about your baby and you are the expert about yourself and your musical identity as well. Now the trouble is that this is asking for quite a developed psychological stability to things because it's really easy to sway in the wind otherwise, you know, and so that is the thing that I've learned, and that's taken, you know, 25 years, and it's still ongoing, and it will take another 300 years probably. I'll come back to you when I'm like 300 years old and tell you whether I've got it right or not.
sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, it's a date.
So how did your idea to to go with a cello and a loop box develop? I mean,
Well,
it's not like you're waking up one morning and you're like, yeah, this is what I'm gonna be doing.
no, you're so right. You're so right. Well, it's a double thing. So it began. My partner Ruben, he we met through music. We played it in bands together. He lent me. It was a Line 6 of DL Green, the Green Stomp box, which had a massive 14 seconds of looping, or if you half the time 20, you know the tempo, you could double it to
Yeah.
28 seconds of looping, which was radical. So I just played G, recorded it, and then played over the top. And suddenly it was like this light bulb went off. The reason it was because when I was at the Centre for Young Musicians, this place I was telling you about earlier, the Saturday School, there were many, many, many more cellists than was necessary for a string orchestra. So, you know, you'd normally have four cellists in a string orchestra. There was
Yeah.
about 30 of us. So we spent quite a lot of time playing in cello ensembles. So that sound of the cello octet or quartet or quintet, whatever, was something I grew up with. So once I played G on this loop pedal and played on top, it was like everything kind of came backwards and forwards all at the same time. The sound was there that I knew and I remembered, and that was a place that I enjoyed playing, you know. And so the first thing I did was looped a quartet that we used to play it was in my head. I have much music in my head always, remembered, you know. and I just played. Well, actually, I didn't play the whole quartet because obviously I only had 28 seconds. So, but I played effectively 5 or 6 chords was what happened, and yeah, life changed. And then quite quickly after that, with great gratitude to Line 6, I moved over to Boss, and that was where my big relationship with Boss began. Um, and I had the RC20, the little single channel loop station. And there's a piece I play still sometimes now called the Falconer, which is possible to play completely on one channel of loop station, provided you can undo the thing you've just put in, which you can on that Boss pedal. So that's one I use when I do demonstrations and stuff. Anyway, and then as so my compositions and so I compose out obviously outside of this as well, so orchestral music and stuff. But as far as looping my stage compositions as a soloist, I'm pushing their technology to the limit all the time. And now I work alongside them. What I did with the RC600. Um, they're very, very helpful to me, and I use it in a little bit of a different way than other people do, I think. Well, there's bound to be 100 million people that use it the same way as me, but in the broad context of how it's normally used, I am making it do quite significantly different things. Um, and so as their technology has developed, so have my compositions because they've been able to develop. However, I loop when I have to, not because I can. You know what I mean? So even though I'm presenting and I'm saying, okay, I'm using a loop station, I don't tend to use that as a strap line for my performances anymore. It's a tool, the same as
Mm.
reverb is a tool. But the Boss kit is phenomenal. You know, it's phenomenal what you can do with it. And well, you've been to gigs, so you know. I mean, it doesn't mean I can
I
play in
know.
tune, but it means that I can do some pretty far out stuff,
Yeah.
which is great.
So, how how different is composing with your electric cello and the jukebox compared to just having like the classical normal cello? How different does it feel? How different do you approach the whole process?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's very with the electric cello. Obviously, there's a lot. You've got all the effects built in and stuff. So there's pieces. There's a piece I play called Embrace, which is built entirely off a sound that I made. So I do a lot of sound design using the GT1000 as well. So this sound has this very strange kind of eerie quality, and hearing that sound then inspired the shape of the rest of the piece. Whereas had I played the same sound, it's the same, used the same technique on the acoustic
Mm.
cello, the sound would have it would have been very interesting, a very slow microtonal roll over an F sharp, but it wouldn't have had these artifacts in it as well and these little bits, transients, bits and pieces. Um, However, the purity and the clarity of playing the acoustic cello and the fact that you feel the whole instrument resonate through your entire body, that uh, that means when I compose solo cello pieces there, also I feel this power here in the chest. I feel it, and I also can do many extended techniques just on that cello that I will quite happily sit in a room. I do this at concerts sometimes. I come into the middle of the room, just play it completely devoid of reverb, but it's so real and it's so earthy, and it has, or if you play the Bach suites or something like that, you're gonna hear all sorts of bits and pieces. There's the studio recordings are not. What's real is they're in the room next to the person hearing every single part of the instrument. It's not just these long, luscious, luxurious tones. It's the sound of the bow when you go nearer the bridge. It's the creaks and
Yeah.
things, the bits and pieces. These are what make that sound. So that's what I'm interested in when we work together, me and my acoustic cello, we work with honesty, um, and the same techniques. I mean, all the extended techniques I learn or I have developed on the acoustic cello, if I put them on the electric cello with a load of reverb, suddenly you've got this whole sound world, but they begin and end and develop with the acoustic cello always.
So how are you drawing your ideas? I mean, where does it come from? Are you walking through nature and you're like, oh, this? something that inspires me, or like what are like the topics that you want to cover or have covered?
Well, it really varies. I mean, for example, in my album Five Incantations, that was I would wanted to explore the aspects of so the cardinal points, what earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. You know, this is where I was reading a lot of Jung at the time. I still do actually, and you know, and that's what inspired that as a complete whole, if you like. Definitely, I'm definitely inspired by. I want to give gratitude to the world or something. So I say, right, Adderstone, for example, this is very much about this piece of coastline. And there's lots of energies there. I spend a lot of time by myself, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but and thinking, you know, and a lot of reading. So art sometimes inspires me as well. The Mucha, particularly because of the way that I talk about this in looping workshops, but the way that these lithographs, the shape and the fluidity, yet within the frame, you know, this is something. So that inspires me. The piece, the album that I'm just working on at the moment is it's really strange because it's a whole collection of pieces which have come quite recently. The last piece that I wrote, uh, I didn't have something in mind, actually, but when I'd written it, I realized what it was about, you know, and so sometimes it reverses as well. But I think all art inspires art. Obviously, clearly music as well. I'm listening to music, but in my case, I'm listening to things either that were made in 1987 or I'm listening to quite a lot of K-pop because that's what my daughter's into. Um, so actually, I learn quite a lot, and I hear these very modern production techniques. Modern, sound like old lady, but you know what I mean. They're state of the art production.
Yeah.
Basically, it's flawless, absolutely flawless. Complete antithesis of what I try to present in a concert. But the production is inspiring, and so I may hear the way reverbs have been used, for example, and then in an orchestral composition, I will orchestrate in such a way that I make the orchestra behave as a reverb unit. So someone pretend you know, let's say your bassoon or no, your French horn maybe has the theme, but then the rest of the woodwinds will just be, and the strings, upper strings will be echoing behind like a reverb. So this is I really enjoy working like this as well. So that's so actually practical things can also inspire me. But it all I, the thing I know is that I know if the piece is okay because it sits and it's authentic. And if there's something wrong with it, I know that. I know it. You do you know what I mean? It's a really weird thing. And if
You
it's
just
not,
feel it that something
yes,
is just a tiny bit off, but you
it's
just
not,
feel it.
yes,
You can't really say like, okay, this is exactly what's wrong with it, but you just
precisely,
feel it doesn't feel just right or
precisely.
natural.
Precisely. It's funny because I've got this exact thing at the moment. So I have a piece of music that I've been commissioned to write for a theatre concert, big beautiful concert in November, and it's commissioned by the Wilming Theatre. It's a piece to celebrate 700 years of the city of Enschede in Holland, right? So I have uh, done a lot of research about this to boil it down. So there's big, you know, we have agriculture, and then moved into to looms, and then industrialization, and then my relationship with the city now. Yeah, so this is kind of the structure of the thing. I started to write this piece, and something felt a bit off. I like what I've written, but it's not the right piece. It's not this piece. I thought it was, but it's not. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's okay because that will go into, you know, the nursery, and it will become something else at some point. But this is not the right piece, and I can't tell you why. I just know it isn't. Maybe I will tell you why when I have written the correct piece, because then I will realize what I'm supposed to be doing. But right now, so I've got this piece. I mean, it's almost like 5 or 6 minutes long, but it's not the right piece, even though I used that inspiration, I used those thought processes, and that's what I was trying to do. I've come out with something which is not right. So, you know, it's interesting.
So how often do the tracks that you write and then they end up in the nursery actually still make it out alive? to say it like this.
Well, yes, many of them do. Some of them it takes a few years. So some ideas. So for example, with invocations application, with that invocation particularly, I'd had a little tiny fragment of invocation for a long time since I'd first met Maria, and I'd first met her a long time before I actually started writing her. But this little thing had been sitting there. Anyway, that sort of grew into those two. Same with supplication, different fragment. But I tend to record things that I'm working along. So I've got a lot of Cubase files, and now I have a more robust naming system. So they used to be called things like Idea 14 or December 2022, sort of crap like that. Never find anything. Now
That doesn't really
it
help. You know,
doesn't help, does it,
you
Karina?
just like you have to click through all of them to actually remember.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, oh that's behind that name. Yeah, no.
Yeah. It's rubbish. So that's the one thing I would advise people is catalogue your work well. And if you'd go into sound design or you found sound field recording, catalogue them well enough so that they can come up in every search that you might want to do for a particular sound that you're after. I know this now from experience, but yeah, they tend to come back in somehow or other. And if they don't, then they've just become good fertilizer, really. Everything, every single note is worthy and relevant because it's part of a process. It doesn't mean it has to go on the final piece. And in actual fact, I mean, composition, I say this all the time, but it's the process of composition is actually usually a process of reduction rather than addition. Is that you quite quickly get a fairly large thing there, and then to compose is what can we pull away, where can we let the light in, you know what I mean? That's so it's not really relevant to what you were asking, but anyway. You've got my soapbox topic going here, so
So, but actually, it goes into like an interesting direction because I've seen that you're also having like this little fan community where you're also like presenting not yet finished pieces of music. And I was,
yeah,
you know, because you never know like in which direction in the end the song is
yeah,
going to be going.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how does that feel to present something that is not really finished and still has maybe a long way to go? How does it feel like?
It's really empowering. I value their time. So this is what you're talking about is an organization called Music Patron, not to be confused with Patreon, totally different. So Music Patron is umbrellaed by Sound and Music here in the UK at the moment. So it's an independent charity. So people sign up to support a composer, and they pay £10 a month or more if they can. I've got people all over the world doing it, which is really lovely. And they I give them updates, regular updates, possibly too many updates, I don't know, but they'll tell me, where I might show them, as you've described, Cubase, something in Cubase, or perhaps something in Dorico, or I'll just tell them about something I'm doing. Um, and about once a month, I choose to hold a Zoom hangout with my patrons. Some of them like to come, some of them prefer not to be involved with that, and that's just basically we just chat, and it's more of the same. But the ones that don't come to the Zoom, still, it doesn't matter; they get the same information still. So bringing these pieces in their early days, it's it's very, very inspiring because are we talking about the orchestration, or are we talking about the end of the piece, or does it feel balanced, blah, blah, blah. So these are the sorts of questions I will ask them as well. This is an early idea. I think it's going to sit here in the album. Do you feel it works? What does it conjure any images? And then what they say uh, is like a warm blanket that covers me. And then as I continue, because they're very into music, not just my music, all music, and very supportive of the arts as well. So I do know, because they've said that they find the creation process quite fascinating as well. So when they see something, so they would have seen, for example, Embrace or Kingfisher on the new album, they've seen Kingfisher in every iteration. They've seen it as a looped thing straight out of the box, you know, they've seen it go through the orchestration process, and they've seen it come back round again to the solo cello version, looped. And we had a few interesting discussions about I'd made a sound, for example, that I wanted to use to in Kingfisher, but I couldn't trust myself. Was it okay? Because it had a couple of little bumps and it was not the perfect sound. So I asked my patrons, and there's a couple of people who are sound designers in there, all sorts of different inputs coming in, and they say what they think. They, you know, people who are technically minded say that. People who are going on how it makes them feel say that. It's all so valuable. I'm very very lucky with them. Yeah, it's brilliant.
But I can also imagine that sometimes it's probably hard for somebody who's not really involved into music if you just have like a super rough version of something, or just like a piece of sheet music. They're like, yeah, I can't really imagine like how this is gonna sound like or feel like, because you have to have like a certain background, I think, to understand certain things.
It possibly so, yes, but I think you're right. I think that's what I try to take a lot of care to make sure that, because we all speak different musical languages, even if we're all professional musicians, we're sitting in a room, we're all going to have a different way of discussing music. So yes, I think it is quite important to have a bit of imagination. If something is particularly raw, I will say to them, you know, we're really going to have to use a lot of imagination, and I will quite often describe also what is missing or where I think it's going. But I will also do this in a way which I do my best to do this in a way which is wholly inclusive of everyone. So it includes people who speak F sharp, G flat, and it includes people who talk about the whether it makes them feel cold or icy. You know what I mean? Both are valid, extraordinarily valid, equally important. Or you know, or whether we're talking third fret, fourth fret, whatever our language is. But if I'm giving them something to listen to, if it's the sheet music, I will always make sure that there is audio playing as well with the sheet music.
Yeah.
So because I mean, even if you look at scores all the time, if you're watching something whiz past on Dorico, you're not. I mean, you're not going to see it all anyway. So, um, but there'll be other things like I'll be asking them whether there's too much top end in something, you know, that stuff like that. We can all answer that question, like does it, or is it too subby, is it, you know, does it make us feel a bit like uncomfortable, is there too much blah blah blah. So all these types of things really important too, I think.
So how's the album going? What's the status?
Well, it's very exciting. So so I've got, so Notan is coming out in September, I beg your pardon, and this is the I say solo cello. I mean, obviously we're talking loops and stuff, but there's actually an acoustic piece and a piano piece on there as well. But that is really well. So Gomez, my producer, has got all of that at the moment. So I record everything here at home, and I record my loops as a continual. I don't do a cut and paste. So if, for example, Rex, which is on the album, there is a loop. Well, the first quartet goes in about 18 times. It loops. So I've played it straight 18 times. So there are, and I want to do this because I want to have the imperfections in. I want as live a feeling as possible. But if you're making a record, I think it's worth probably having a little bit of respect for the process of actually making a record. Therefore, I want a little bit of control. So, I mean, if I'm not just going to loop it, I want to be able to separate each track so that it's really super clarity. Because when I listen with my in ears is one thing. Um, it's okay when I record it. It's fine. And for a live, you know, straight busk out, it's fine. When we listen to a PA, however glorious the PA, we contend with the room, everything else. So that sound,
Okay.
the sound that you hear when I play a concert, we're dealing with the room as well. But that part of the room is what I want to put into the recording. So anyway, so Gomez has got all my stems, and he hasn't phoned up to say he hates me yet. So this is good. Um, Costin has other. commissioned an incredible artist to make some artwork, and he, oh my God, he just, this piece that he's created is absolutely stunning. I can't wait for you to see it. It's so beautiful. Um, it's there's so many stories you can tell just looking into this picture, and whether anybody knows the start point of the record or not doesn't matter, because you can make your own picture with this. It's great. So
So do you tell the artist like what's the story behind the
yes,
album, or is the person like listening to parts of the music and based on how it feels it's
both.
created, or
Both. He's going to do the album artwork for Janus as well, which is the orchestral one. So Janus has actually been ready in a mock-up form for a lot longer than Notan has. So Costin, when it came to Notan, the solo cello one that we're discussing now, I did give him a brief of sorts, but it was more of a kind of brain dump than a brief. And he's this album is very much, I think, because of some, I don't know what it is, some of the things that I've been through recently in the last year with the hysterectomy and stuff like that. Then the problems of recovery. So I had 4 months out where I had to get fixed up again. So there was a lot of time. A lot of this album was put together either side of that, and there's been this change. There's a solidity about things. Anyway, something to do with this. This is what I was talking to him about. This album is a collection of pieces which are all about where I am and where I have always been and where my roots are. And it's very rooted, very earthy, but not perhaps so much in the kind of ethery way. It's actually very, right, here we are. And so I said this to him and said, I've lived in the same place my whole life. I'm used to seeing this view. Every day I see a view, either here or there, but I see this same view. And all I can think about over and over again is the fact that the view that I'm looking at, history, ancient things stand in front. So I look at the forest, and the forest stands in front of the city of Silvertown and Essex. That's what I can see down the hill. Or if I'm down the road in Greenwich, this is Queen Elizabeth Oak, one that hadn't fallen over, the other one is in front of Canary Wharf. And this is how I feel actually about music, and this is what this album is about, combined up with Janus, the other album as well, because Janus is the orchestral one. So again, we're bringing the history in front. So it's a little bit complicated to try and articulate. But anyway, poor old Costin. So I just gave him this brain dump. Then he said, "Can you go and take some pictures of where you live?" So I did, and I sent him. So he has put in the oak tree and the city, but he's done it in such a way that is completely captivating. You cannot stop looking at this image. It's amazing.
now I'm really curious.
Yeah, you're going to love it. I hope so. Well, maybe you won't, but who knows? So,
um Now you're going on tour again, so you're taking a break
yes.
from all the recording and album madness. How does it feel to get back on the road?
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. It's the Baltic one country a day circuit that we're doing, which is often in a slightly W routing. No, it's great. I love it. I'm touring with God is an Astronaut. They are my family, no, absolute family. Wonderful people, incredible musicians. So when I'm touring with them, it's like a masterclass every night. They are brilliant. And I play my set and then I join them for a little bit at the end of their set as well. And that's really cool. Touring is it's a luxury and extremely hard working as well. And the luxury part for me is that I am solely responsible for only myself. So I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking whether people have eaten enough vegetables or all the usual sorts of things, that people's shirts are clean, which are pleasurable things that I love to do. But so I only have to make sure I've eaten enough vegetables and my top is clean, and focus just on playing the music, and doing the best I can each night. But prior to that, it's been absolutely crazy. So I've been finishing orchestrations, reorchestrations, working like crazy because I want to get them all out of the way before I go. So I think it will feel doubly relaxing when I actually go on this, get on the road again, because I will have done a huge amount of work, which is sitting here looking at me now. It's like stacks and stacks of stuff. Honestly, it's crazy. Good though.
Um, so how does it feel to be on tour? Like, do you have like a certain routine, something that you always like have to do to feel prepared for getting on stage, or?
For getting on stage, I like to I like to be by myself for a little while before I go on stage, definitely. And um my tour manager, he knows that. He's brilliant. He stays out of the way, you know. It's not because I'm a diva, it's just that I can't have people coming in and then sort of putting stuff, and sometimes that has happened in the past, you know, so I have to be by myself for a little bit. um I also, prior to that, a long time prior to that, I need to know what time we're eating and how we are eating. So is it a buyout or is it in-house catering? Because if I don't eat, I can't play. I can play, obviously, but I'm just like shit. So, um, so Federico, so tour manager's pretty good with sussing stuff like that out as well. Um, but other than that, no, I think when I go to the stage, when I'm ready and I go to the stage, when they call me to the stage, each stage is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if it's the Royal Albert Hall or the West Wimbledon table tennis conference room or whatever it is. They're all the same, and so there's the same mental preparation that goes in. It's just that some are bigger. So if they're very, very big, then I beforehand I take a little bit of time just to make sure that I have enough uh, power this way to occupy that stage and to tell the story with uh, intent, you know. But if the stage is small, we don't need to be quite so aware of that side of things. It's a different side of performance, really. Mm.
So how was the perception so far?
The perception
Yeah. Were
of
people
what?
happy
Oh yeah,
of your
yeah, yeah,
performance? I mean, most people just come for the main act. And they're like, oh yeah, there's a support act. Okay, nice. Or maybe
yeah,
not nice, depending on
yeah.
what they
I
come for.
think.
So,
I mean, it depends. It does depend. So with Wardruna, yeah, that's definitely the case. They but their fans are curious, and because I've released a couple of records through By Norse as well, and you know I've toured with Wardruna before and Highland, of course, blah blah blah. So they're likely to be a little bit aware. With God is an Astronaut, it's a little bit different because I've done so much work with them that and been on their albums and stuff. So happily, most people are familiar at least with the name, if not the performance. And because they tie very closely, I think it's a good balance between what I do and what they do. Um, it's yeah, it works well, and so the audiences are I'm blessed to say uh, that well, I know statistically, I know for a fact because I got told so on Wardruna, I had at least 80% of the audience were there for when I was playing. The God is National in excess of that as well. So um, it's very humbling. It's a great privilege, but I take time to say thank you for that as well, because if these people didn't bother, then the world wouldn't turn for me the way it does. So mm.
but is there an artist that you would like to tour with or record with or?
Yeah, I mean, there's it's funny because when I get asked this question, um, my mind goes completely blank, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, yes, I mean there are well, yes. So you'll have to deal with this one for me. Yes is the answer to that. What's really interesting is when people come to me for sessions and I have no idea who they are and I've never heard their music before, and it's fascinating. So I obviously I do an awful lot in the metal world. I've worked with some people. I mean, I would have said to you, yeah, the person I want to record with is Maria Franz and Lorenzo Esposito Fonsari, Lucy Deli, Tom Atherton. These are people that I have recorded with. Um, some are household names, some are not, but they are of unparalleled brilliance, all of them, you see. And so it's not necessarily about who is famous, it's about who have I who have I yet to meet? Who is an absolute master craftsman? There's a guy who I watch. I've forgotten his name actually. Just because I forget things. I can tell you if you want to know his name. I will just tell you right now. Um, Hang on a minute. Sorry. What is this interview, by the way? Is it going out? Asif Sirkis, his name is. He's a conical, percussionist and spoken, takatima, takatima. This
Mm.
completely mind-blowingly brilliant. And if there was a way that I could work with him in such a way where it didn't sound like, oh, someone's playing a cello with somebody who's doing conical, then I would go for that. So therefore, it would be compositionally. If there,
But
if
that
it
was
was,
a really cool mix, actually. I can like
yes,
really imagine this being like
yes,
mind
yeah,
blowing.
mind blowing, yeah, but not if it's him going, takadiming and then me going da 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 da, like so
Yeah.
basically it needs to be so I would imagine electric cello. I would imagine that the conical aspect would not just be in what he does, but would be in perhaps the structure of the composition as well. So we would look at the patterns, and then I would be thinking, okay, because I do this quite a lot anyway in composition. So how what is the shape I'm drawing here? There's one conical rhythm called cowtail where you just basically it folds down on itself until you
Yeah.
end up with kind of, which is exactly like looping basically, but it's this polyrhythmic aspect. It's not polyrhythm, but we could make it appear to be, or and we just rhythmically it'd be rhythms. I think it's rhythms, rhythmic people. So drummers, percussionists. These are the people I really enjoy. Tom Atherton is brilliant, completely brilliant percussionist. So it's always a joy working with him, and he always says, "Yep, no problem, we can do that," rather than "Oh shit." So, um, yeah, I've got a tour actually in September, and Tom is just in the UK. Tom is going to come and play with me in my London concert at O'Meara. So I'm really excited about that. And I hate rehearsing, and he's really good at not minding not rehearsing. So that's also good. There you go.
Perfect
Anyway,
match.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
So, are you looking forward to the tour in September?
Very,
Or is
very
it still
much.
so far away that you're not even like spending
No,
time
right.
thinking about it?
I know how these go. I mean, I'm already looking at what's happening in 2026. So basically, yeah. So September is going to come around in the bat of an eyelid. I'm really looking forward to it. I want to be able to bring two extra pieces into the set, which because on Notan there's two pieces which are quite familiar anyway, which I've been playing a lot, Rex and Embrace. So I try to play things for as long as possible before I commit them to a record. But there's two, Kingfisher and Butterfly Dance, which have not been performed live, and I would like to be able to bring them into the set. Funnily enough, the problem will be whether I've got enough time in my own set, because even if it is as a headliner, I mean, you can't go on for much more than an hour or an hour and a quarter, and I could quite easily fill up 3 hours. Like, I think there's a limit to how much electric cello we can all listen to, but yes, short answer is yes, I am very much.
So, it's already a struggle to actually decide what's going to be on the
Yeah.
list.
Yes, yeah, it is a problem. It's a real problem. So, same with support slots and things, because if you're given 40 minutes, that's four
Yeah.
tracks. So I want to play Gold, but also I'd like to play Embrace. There's several tracks which they're not the same. I try never to write the same album twice, but there are tracks which occupy a similar holding bay. So Gold and Embrace would be one example, or there'd be Adderstone and Forge, or Cantus and Stag, perhaps. There's several parallels and
Hmm.
pairs, and I can't play them all. And some of them fit nicer than others. But at the moment, I've got a set which is my support set, which is really silly because I've got two separate retunings in there. But this is the set that wants to be played at the moment. This is the right set to be playing, so I'm playing it. Anyway. So yeah.
But is there a track that you would like to play live, but you know it's just not gonna work out for whatever reason?
Well, Corsleen's Wheel used to be that track actually. That Corsleen's Wheel from Exolve would have been impossible to play live. Well, no, it would have been possible, but it would have taken a lot of thought. But also, I didn't feel that I just didn't feel I wanted to go there with that one. Anyway, Corstein's Wheel then was the track that we played at Dunk Festival last year. So I could play it live because I could orchestrate it and Lucy could sing it. And then it moved with the grace and the shape that I wanted it to move, that I suspect it wouldn't do that. I would have to make a different version where I had to do it on solo cello. I mean, obviously it's on my album. I wrote it and I wrote it busked out on a loop, but then the refining of that meant that it was one of the first ones that gave me a thought in my head that perhaps I might start to investigate writing orchestral music. And this was 2017 or 16, whenever it was that I wrote that piece. So yeah, so that was the one, but there aren't any others. I used to think I would never be able to play Forge live, and I play Forge all the time now. Some of them require a degree of either stupidity or bravery to do them because, there's no safety net. If I go wrong, well, there we go, you know, it's a live
So
performance.
so you're not thinking about the playing live aspect of a song when you're composing it, like thinking like, "Huh, does this is this gonna work, or how am I
No,
gonna do it work?" Or
you're right. I don't. It, which is the weird thing because the compositional process very often begins with the loops. Like in this case, it began with these loops that I made for the whole of what became Notan Anianus. So the start point is what it's possible to play live, sitting in your studio. Then then so my recent workflow is a good example because then the next thing that happened was I orchestrated it. So I wasn't didn't even think that I would be doing any of these pieces on solo cello. They just all went straight through to be orchestrated because I wanted the big rich sound. I wanted all of these different colors, etc., etc. And then when I started to think, well, hang on a minute, actually this could work. We could do this back the other way. So then I started moving. So there's different variations. So Kingfisher, the orchestral version of Kingfisher, is very very dark, edgy, all over the place, big, huge. Blah, blah, blah. The solo cello version of Kingfisher is much more about intricacies, sound design, and sound modelling. It's the same thematic material, but it has to be done in a different way because I cannot recreate that orchestration. So yeah, so actually, I'm very comfortable with the fact that I will be very often presenting two different versions, completely different versions of pieces, um, and I don't think about how I'm going to play them live until I start to prepare them for the stage, basically.
all right, I have one last question. I think you're being asked quite a lot of questions, like all the musicians that are doing interviews. But is there a question that you've never been asked, but you were always waiting for it to be asked? And what's
Well,
the answer?
if you'd asked me that before the interview, I might have been able to come up with one, but I can't. Um, no, I don't think so. I don't think so, Karina. I'm not sure. It's a bit like the question's a bit like it's a bit like loop stations, really. It's like you because how do you know what you don't know till you've tried to do it? No, I can't. This is not very good. So no, there isn't a question I'm waiting to be asked, I don't think. Um, no, I don't think so. But your questions were lovely, so thank you.
Thank you for your time.
No, it's an absolute pleasure.